This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Be advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
It's time. I'm a young Filipino and I am now making a stand.
A stand for my God,
my country,
my people.
A stand against poverty.
I will end the number one poverty of all in our country.
Poverty of the mind and heart.
I will replace my colonial mentality
with a proudly Filipino bayanihan mentality.
God did not make a mistake in creating me Filipino. I am honoring God's plan for me as a Filipino by loving my country.
I am joining the fight to end poverty, not just in words, but more so in action.
I will not stand by idly as millions of my fellow Filipinos go hungry while I pursue my dreams and build my riches.
I will take on the dream of those who have lost their capacity to dream.
I dream of a prosperous, slum-free Philippines.
A people who will not merely be consumers, but also producers.
I dream of Filipino brands which will be globally recognizable.
Filipino brands that do not leave the poor behind.
I will produce such a brand.
Through entrepreneurship, I will make this dream come true. Not just ordinary entrepreneurship, but inclusive entrepreneurship.
Living in a country so rich in natural resources
and being among gifted people,
no reason exists why I should fail.
I will be my brother's keeper. I will help the poor become poor. I will make the poor a dignified partner in my business.
I will end poverty by creating wealth, not just for me and my family, but also for the poor, because the poor is my family.
I will use my time to make productive the time of the poor.
I will use my talent to help the poor uncover theirs. I will use my treasure to invest in the poor.
And together, we will build a worthy treasury for all.
I will be the next Chicago. Come, join me.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Philippines Uncut. I'm your host, Buddy Kunana. On this show, we talk about everything in the sun. And tonight, we're going to be talking about Good News Philippines, specifically about social entrepreneurship or social enterprise, this powerful medium for social change and nation building. And joining us today are three very dynamic personalities at this, spearheading this initiative in the country. I have with me Rose Cabrera. She's the Director of Geeconomics and the owner of the Mambuhay Rest Stop. We have Pinky Po, the Director of Geeconomics also. And finally, last but not least, former Mayor Freddie Tinga, who is the President of GETT. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Philippines Uncut.
Thank you for having us, buddy.
No, pleasure to have you, you guys here. Now, let's start off the discussion with some introductions. Let's start with the ladies. Lady in red first. Pinky.
Hi, I'm Pinky Po. I'm a Director of Geeconomics, one of the 5 co-founders. In Geeconomics, we partner with Gawad Kalinga to build social enterprises in the GK communities to really address the question of sustainability. What now after the homes?
Very nice. Pinky. Rose?
Hi, yes. I'm also a co-founder of Geeconomics. I'm a long-time GK volunteer, and I used to be based in the States. I also I'm a lawyer by profession, but now I claim to be a social entrepreneur. So I set up Mambuhay Rest Stop, which is a social tourism enterprise, among other things. And we are now really very much into promoting social enterprise as a way out of poverty for our country.
Excellent. Ready?
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of social enterprise. Used to be in government for a very long time, for me at least, a dozen years. And my take on this is I really wanted to make a difference. I think there's a way to do that in government. And fortunately for me, I think there's an even bigger way to do that once you're outside and you've figured out a model to do it with.
How does it feel being a private citizen after being mayor of Taguig for 9 years and now you're involved in this? I mean, how does it feel to segue into this field?
Well, I've always thought that being in government was a temporary gig. You know, it's something I felt that if you have the opportunity to step in those shoes and do something to help the country in an official capacity, do it. The problem with doing it is if you fall in love with the perks and the power, then your priorities start changing. So I've always said, I'll do this, but at some point in time, when they still like you, while they still like you, because at some point in time they will hate you. While they still like you, if you have the opportunity to do something else that will still make a difference, probably on a bigger scale, if you have that chance, do it. No? So this is the chance that's been given to me. And it's great, and I think what I've learned in government and what I've learned from the private sector as well is all coming together to do what we're doing now.
And it says here you're president of GETT. What is
GET? It's
GET?
It's Global Electric Transportation. This is a joint venture between a group here in the Philippines as well as an American group based in Portland, Oregon, actually Vancouver, Washington. And so what we are doing is looking at the electric vehicle as a solution for mass transport, but doing it in a way that incorporates a lot of technology aside from that of the electric vehicle, making sure it's environmentally sustainable. And I think the biggest part of what the Filipinos are bringing in, with sila Rose and Pinky, is the people side. If you look at how they do electric vehicles everywhere in the world, it's usually the single driver, few passenger kind of thing. Sarili mong sasakyan. Yes. You drive it for a couple of hours and then it's in the garage most of the time. So charging. So we said, if it was built for mass transport, for the masses, for a dense urban center where you don't really need to travel that fast, you don't really need to go that far. So this is not a highway, high-speed vehicle. It's a medium-cost, medium-speed vehicle designed for urban centers. It's actually a perfect fit. And if you do it with social enterprise in mind, giving the drivers better jobs and better incomes, giving the owners of the vehicles better incomes, it's a win-win-win. The people get a better deal in life. Yeah. The environment obviously improves, and you have a very profitable and sustainable business. So that's what we've crafted, and it fits in what Pinky and Rose are doing.
Now, before we talk about how you, Pinky, and Rose are involved with GET, let's talk about Geekonomics. What is Geekonomics exactly? Let's also define what GK is all about in the first place.
Okay. So Gawad Kalinga is a nation-building movement that started in the actually late 90s. And the idea is to really, it started with Couples for Christ, a Catholic lay group. And it was a way of expressing our faith, putting it into action. So naturally, you renew yourself, you renew your family, and then you have to renew society. And Gawad Kalinga is a concrete expression of that. So that's how I became involved in Gawad Kalinga, because I was a member of Couples for Christ. And Geekonomics came about because GK has this 777 vision. It's a 21-year vision. By 2024, to have lifted 5 million families out of poverty. And by then, hopefully, we'll really see a whole new generation of caring Filipinos and a very different Philippines.
By 2024?
2024, yes. Okay. So the first 7 years, we're done with that, 2003 to 2010. So that's the social justice phase. So even my being a lawyer fits in very perfectly with that, because Gawad Kalinga is building a lasting foundation for social justice for new generations. So, you can't be any more... then practicing as a lawyer is really not just going to the courtroom and just, litigating cases, but it's really about justice, and that's what Gawad Kalinga. So I didn't hesitate to give up on my, I had a dream before to become a judge, but when Gawad Kalinga came, I felt this is a
So you had a career in the States, and you decided to come back and get involved with GK. That's
yes, amazing. And I practiced there for a while.
Reverse migration right there.
Yeah, slowly. I started cutting my hours, and then...
How about you, Rose? How did you, Pinky, how did you get involved in GK? Same track like Rose as well?
Well, she was a lawyer, and I was really in the corporate world. I headed internal audit for the biggest oil field services company in the world. I was based in the U.S. also. And at that point, I just felt like a couple, 2 high incomes, just 2 kids. I'm sure this is not what I was born to do. This is not my purpose in life.
There's something more, yeah.
Yeah, so I started seeking it, and I was looking for somewhere where I could really use my background, my skills, and I found it in GK. Also because I was a member for Couples for Christ, and I started volunteering. But then, obviously, my core competence is not building homes. So we decided maybe we could volunteer in a much more meaningful, sustainable way. And that's how the 5 of us got together, all with different business and corporate backgrounds. Yes.
Okay.
And to really set it up so that the experience that we have, the skills that we have, instead of benefiting for ourselves, we could then use those same to help other people achieve even just a fraction of what we have.
So what does Geekonomics do? I mean, like you're all. I mean, 2 of you are from GK originally,
yes.
and then now you have this Geekonomics. How
Yes.
I mean, what is the relationship between GK and Geekonomics?
We build social enterprises in the Gawad Kalinga communities. Just because it's already organized,
all right.
they have their kapitbahayan system, they have a leadership
It's
system
a natural
going.
fit. It's a natural fit.
And there's
Absolutely.
values formation, which is very, very important for us to set up something that, it's not just for money, but rather really about restoring dignity. So
nice.
the values formation that happened as they built the communities, we just add in some values formation from a financial standpoint and commitments, and that's
so
really
we're basically facilitators. If entrepreneurs want to engage the communities, we help make it happen for them.
You empower them. You really empower them. You give them,
Because it would be so hard for an entrepreneur to just hire directly from the communities. At least it's good to have a buffer like Geekonomics. We can really vet the communities for them, find them contacts who could really deliver for them.
Okay.
So that's kind of what we do.
Okay, before we talk about social entrepreneurship, I want to ask Freddie something. When you were mayor, did you do things like this? During your 9 years stint in Taguig, did you do social enterprise?
We worked with GK a lot, and that's where the relationship starts. I was never part of GK. I'm not part of Geekonomics. That's why they call me a heathen, But I've always loved what they did and did for Taguig, no? I mean, the housing communities they were able to improve in Taguig, we couldn't have done that on our own. And in the stuff that we're doing now, a lot of it is based on working with GK, Geekonomics, and the communities. Sa drivers na lang, for example. All our drivers go through values education through the GK pipeline. No? So that's stuff that, you look at what you're trying to do, electric vehicle, high-tech, and all that. People usually forget the people part, no? And that's what they're very, very good at. So unless you're able to create an inclusive solution, and I've heard that term time and again from Sila Rose and Pinky, it's not going to work, And I think that's where a lot of the misunderstanding for new enterprises that deal in social enterprise or social entrepreneurship begin with and start from is akala nila it's just about fixing up with the community. No. I mean, and this is why we share that message that it's probably a mix of what they brought in from the business world. Rose being a lawyer, Pinky in the corporate world. You need that to work with the guys in the communities for this thing all to come together. So our premise with what we're trying to do is 3 legs namin, sabi namin. I come from the tech world before joining politics. I said, it's technology plus the environment plus people. So the solution has to be intelligent, it has to be sustainable, it has to be inclusive. We feel if you get a mix of all 3 integrated in whatever business it is that you're going to be doing, it's going to work. Or at least that's the premise. That's the recipe.
Yes.
That's the recipe.
Now, let's define social entrepreneurship. Gross. How would you define it?
Essentially, businesses with a heart. You
Nice.
make sure that it benefits not just yourself and your immediate family, but also society as a whole. So you're really addressing particular societal problems.
Do we see a lot of that coming up now? I mean, do you see an increase in social entrepreneurship? People
yes.
leaning towards that, in that direction?
It's been very inspiring to see a lot of social enterprises, trying to incubating a lot of them and then some being successful. But I guess that's why we're really very excited with GET, because it takes the idea of social enterprise to a whole new level. You're talking about $1 million enterprise here. It's going to really commit to community development. It's really committed to take care of their people, to take care of society, of the environment. So,
can social entrepreneurship be profitable?
It should be.
No, it should be, but
yes,
can it?
Well, it has to be. I mean, that's the whole idea behind social enterprise. It's not charity, no? And you have a nice middle ground between capitalism, which is tough to really make work. It's just the haves getting richer all the time, and then charity on the other end, which is not also going to work. We think with what Geekonomics is doing, they will create profitable social enterprises. We think that if we do hit the scale we intend to do all over the country and around the world, you could create the first billion-dollar social enterprise. That's what we see. You know, and we think it's very, very doable.
See, that's the mindset when people talk about social entrepreneurship, social enterprise. They automatically think, oh, this is a charity case. It's not going to make any money.
Exactly, and right now, like we've always been invited to a lot of fora asking us to define social enterprise, and there's no agreed definition of social enterprise. Some say it should be profitable, some say it shouldn't be.
Really?
And
There's some people say it shouldn't be profitable.
only because they differentiate business for profit and social enterprise. To me, the day should come when we do not even need to define an enterprise as social.
It should be the norm.
Automatic. It should be a norm that we do business with a heart, that when we want to profit, we take people along with us and we do not leave anyone behind. That's the day when it's just...
And we shouldn't leave the environment behind. Nothing gets left behind.
Nothing gets left behind. You don't do business and create a social problem. So in the end, so I said, while you still are defining, let's just do. Then in the end, we don't even need to define because there shouldn't be a difference.
And our tagline will be irrelevant. Our tagline is business unusual.
Right now.
So hopefully by...
business usual.
Someday, someday that should be business as usual. But right now, we have to define it as business unusual.
But I see, I see businesses going there. I mean, like corporate social responsibility. I mean, it's increasing. I mean, and their engagement with the communities, their engagements with social issues and things like that. What do you think, Freddie? I mean, do you see that going that direction? At least the big corporations are. I don't know about the small to medium scale.
Well, for me, and I'll be attending a forum, speaking at the forum on exactly this. The panel, it's a pretty funny panel. I'm there, I'm speaking. The other guy's the CEO of Total. So you have talagang geometrically opposed, startup as a huge guy. CSR's first step, but the whole idea of CSR means I have a section of my business dedicated to helping. My business, but in general, isn't really into that. It's a section of my business. What we're saying, it's got to be core to what you do, the entire business. And it shouldn't be a choice. Like in our case, we're saying, okay, by giving the drivers better lives, and we're allocating a % of all fares collected to social enterprise and community improvement, we're saying that's core to our business. Because if my drivers, the guys driving our electric vehicles, don't have a better life than they have now, then why should they cross over to the electric vehicle? So I have to convince them, and giving them better lives then becomes core to your success. And that's, I think, what people have to understand. CSR is great, but if that's just a department in the organization doing an activity once every so often,
feel-good activity to make the board
I'm not complaining because there is an impact. CSR does make an impact. But until that becomes part of your business and not just a department, it's going to take that kind of move and change. And we think that if we pull off what we think we're going to be able to pull off, we can tell people, see, there's a way to do it. You can be hugely successful, probably hugely profitable, and then helping the environment and helping the community at the same time.
Really is optimistic about. I mean, it's a very it's a very high goal to shoot for, to really have a paradigm shift in the way corporations think, the way people think. Are you ladies
I think
optimistic?
there's no other choice. Yeah, we're radical optimists.
I like that word.
We just
Radical
have to
optimist.
try.
Good word, good word.
Just gotta do it. We're here. At the start of our work, people were calling us, GK, magagaga kayo. Because they just felt it's so not doable. And we're like, we really believe it is.
It's the kind of thing, I was telling people about this crazy company, you included, in what we were doing. If I had told you a year ago that we would launch an electric vehicle company and Obama would come in to endorse it, you'd have called me crazy, right? But now I tell you, I ask you, so when's the last time a U.S. president came over to endorse a Filipino product?
Never.
Never.
And in our case, 5 years ago, we started with one community making tiny little bags from doy packs, and we're now in 75 communities with 50 social enterprises.
Okay, hold that thought, because I want to pick up from there. We have to pause for a break.
Okay.
Guys, don't go away, because more of social enterprise and G-economics when Philippines Uncut returns.
This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Be advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
It's time. I'm a young Filipino and I am now making a stand.
A stand for my God,
my country,
my people.
A stand against poverty.
I will end the number one poverty of all in our country.
Poverty of the mind and heart.
I will replace my colonial mentality
with a proudly Filipino bayanihan mentality.
I dream of a prosperous, slum-free Philippines.
A people who will not merely be consumers, but also producers.
I dream of Filipino brands which will be globally recognizable.
Filipino brands that do not leave the poor behind.
I will produce such a brand.
Through entrepreneurship, I will make this dream come true. Not just ordinary entrepreneurship, but inclusive entrepreneurship.
God did not make a mistake in creating me Filipino. I am honoring God's plan for me as a Filipino by loving my country.
I am joining the fight to end poverty, not just in words, but more so in action.
I will not stand by idly as millions of my fellow Filipinos go hungry while I pursue my dreams and build my riches.
I will take on the dream of those who have lost their capacity to dream.